Hello and welcome to Press Party, where we turn the tables and talk about the media. I'm your host, Katie Eastman. President Obama took a trip to Boston on Wednesday, and it was no mistake that he gave a speech in the same place where Mitt Romney signed the Bay State's Health Care Act 7 years ago. We'll talk press coverage then and now. And John Henry officially owns the Boston Globe, and he wrote an op-ed all about it. But it's what he didn't say that stands out. And we can't forget the world champion Red Sox will take a step away from the team and look at who broadcasts the games. Plus, capitalizing off of tragedy. Well, that's never a good idea. We'll take a look at the company that pulled an ad campaign because Bostonians got angry. Now let's introduce our panelists. First off, we've got Suffolk University Chair of Communications and Journalism, Dr. Bob Rosenthal. Next to him, we have Hillary Chabot. She is the chief political reporter at the Boston Herald and co-host of Boston Herald Radio's Morning Meeting. And we have Herald columnist Joe Battenfeld. So now let's get to our first topic. As if the World Series wasn't enough for this city, the president swooped in on Wednesday to talk about the Affordable Care Act. It's part of his national tour, but this visit reminded all of the media here in Boston of an event back in 2006. When affordable health care rolled out, the website was full of issues.
Let's face it, we've had a problem.
So Obama is on a tour to defend the rollout, and his first stop was Boston.
Well, healthcare reform in this state was a success.
Look familiar?
Every citizen with affordable, comprehensive health insurance.
It was no coincidence that President Obama chose to give his speech in the same place that Mitt Romney signed Massachusetts Health Care Act into law 7 years ago.
Because this is the hall where, 7 years ago, Democrats and Republicans came together.
But in 2006, the circumstances were a lot different. The press was favorable. Even Romney's podium was sky high.
Everybody has been talking about you reaching higher places. I didn't know it was going to happen today.
He was already preparing for a presidential run, but now Obama's presidency is running off a cliff as his favorability rating is at an all-time low. While Romney was greeted with fanfare, Obama was greeted with skepticism. Reporting for Press Party, I'm Katie Eastman. Now, Joe, you covered the signing of the health care bill back in 2006. Tell us what the atmosphere was like back then.
First of all, Katie, I want to say that thank God you got rid of the guy who used to host Press Party. He was terrible. I can't remember his name, but he was awful. So thank God you're doing this now. But I was there in 2006, and it was a very feel-good kind of event that Mitt Romney was trying to use it for his his upcoming presidential campaign. He was already planning. He had that special podium brought in. There was
I was so glad you pointed that out, and I was so glad that you had Sal DeMacy talking about it because he always liked to tweak people about things. And I love that he made fun of Mitt Romney for that podium.
Yes. He actually bought that especially to look presidential. And there was like a little fife and drum band playing with flutes and everything. The colonial band playing. It was ridiculously over the top, extravagant ceremony, and as opposed to Obama's, it was way more orchestrated than Obama's was, even for a president.
So that's the campaign, but what was the press coverage like? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think it was very positive at the time.
Yeah, not my piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Not my piece.
Well, no, but then you are contrarian.
Yes.
Right? But yeah, it was very positive at the time, and in fact, it was considered to be a great compromise between Democrats and Republicans, and actually was a conservative idea that was once endorsed by the National Party. And so that was one of the reasons why Romney did it, because he thought he would look better when he became a presidential candidate, because he was requiring people to buy private health insurance. What a novel idea. Now, when Obama does it, he's a socialist. I find that kind of ironic.
And that was his contribution to that plan, was the idea that people had to have health insurance to make, so it's fair for everybody else. Like you said, it sort of turned the tables later on.
Who would have known that a few years later he'd be running as far away from it as he could and insisting that state by state is actually, trying to find a way out to not be compared with the Affordable Care Act.
But the media coverage was positive of that. Dr. Bob's right. It was, except for, if you go back and look at my piece, I think I went up to Romney after that to ask him questions, I remember, about how they were going to pay for it, because there were signs already that it was costing. Now, a couple of years later, of course, it is turning out to be expensive. That's the one big drawback
Yes.
of healthcare in Massachusetts, is that it hasn't cut down the cost at all. And so I was asking Romney about that, and his people got very upset. They surrounded me and said, basically I was raining on their parade, and they didn't like it. So they tried to get me out of there, as the Romney people tended to do. But it was very positive overall. Nobody could have possibly have foreseen that 7 years later, the actual president, would be there touting a national health care
Well,
bill.
and think about the play that these received, right? I mean, I have a feeling, obviously, because of the World Series, he's not going to get the front page placement.
And he
but
knew
I'm
that's the first thing he said when
Right.
he came. I know I'm not the most important thing happening in Boston tonight.
But I have a feeling the Romney signing it probably placed very prominently in the next day's papers.
But yeah, although I don't think this event got even that much coverage.
Really?
In local
No.
TV,
Yeah.
it was nothing. I mean, because of the World Series, that's why I question his whole idea of going there that day. Because first of all, it annoyed people because it caused extra traffic and everything for the big World Series day, and nobody wanted to see a political event. The Red Sox were about to win
But
the
I
World
think
Series.
he wanted that coverage. He wanted the comparison of
He did.
this and now, and to be so that he could look bipartisan as well, and so that the media could say
Right.
he's trying to look bipartisan, just like Romney was.
Exactly. The most telling moment, though, is the picture there that has Ted Kennedy in the background of Romney. Had Ted Kennedy still been alive and he would have been able to be in the back of
yeah.
Barack Obama, we would have had a better health care bill. We would have had some buy-in, I think, from the Republicans, because Ted would have forged those kind of coalitions. And I think the problem with the current law is that Ted Kennedy is no longer in the picture.
And
Right.
with the current president, because a lot of people criticize him for not being as working together and working across the aisle as Kennedy was.
Yes, exactly.
But I do think Obama would have gotten a lot more coverage of this if they had chosen another day when the
Right.
Red Sox weren't winning the World Series. So I know and then he basically added on this event because it was a fundraiser
Exactly.
in Weston, and they added on so they don't have to pay for it. So the taxpayers actually have to pay for it. That was the reason for it. So I thought they'd throw it in there, but I just don't think it got much traction at all.
The other thing that it did, though, think of Conley and Walsh running for mayor, right? And yesterday you have the president in town, and you have the Red Sox in the sixth game of
Once
the World
again, they're
Series,
overshadowed.
and you're trying to get some airtime, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
like,
Forget
wow.
it. Forget it. It was impossible.
So I think even the president was overshadowed by the World Series yesterday. Thanks, everyone. And don't forget to let us know what you think. Leave a comment on our press party chat and stay here on bostonherald.com for a look at John Henry's 2,800 words about his new newspaper.